I have an alternative theory as to why this dip is happening, by the way. I don't know if this is a strong one. It's probably not. Just throwing it out there first. But assuming that this upper bound was created by, like, first of all, I reject the hypothesis that this downturn is caused by the industry players no longer playing. And the reason why is because industry doesn't require you to be logged in very much. And therefore, industrial players are not going to be counted by the PCU as much as other types of players, more or less. Now, they could be logged in AFK or whatever, but like that. But like compared to other play styles, you would expect a loss in Abyss runners to be a much higher drop in the PCU, is all I'm saying. They log in, but the act of doing industry does not mean that you need to be logged in for hours at a time. Does not necessitate such things in the way that other activities are. That's all I'm saying. I think a lot of companies are bringing people back into the office, and that has a small factor in the PCU. That's actually a really good point. We'll circle back on that. But what I'd like to suggest is the people who are doing the biggest play, the legitimate players, not just bots or anything like that, that are impacting the PCU the most, would be event runners. They're the ones that are doing it. Like, they're logged in for long periods of time. There's a lot of them. It's a big boost in activity. So it could be worth noting that, January and February end up being higher because of the Doctor Who event and the Guardians Gala. And now that the Guardians Gala has fallen off, whoop, so does the numbers. That is my theory. ISD Thalic's idea is that it's a dip due to people. Sorry. It's either people go, sorry, IC Golem says it's from people going back to work. IC Thalic suggests that it could be related to the war. The war is actually a good one, although I think that would the dip happen then or would it happen a little bit earlier? I don't remember. Hey, Frosty's OP. It's good to see you. That player spike in January 2022 was the destruction of the AOM Keepstar. Oh, right here. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Frosty. Hey, guys. Like, I know we do shout outs and everything like that. Whatever. I am honored and humbled that Frosties would come here and deign to listen to what I have to say about any of this shit. So we're going to shout out to Frosties. You want to talk about a content creator that has really proven themselves within the EVE community within the last year or so. She has made an incredibly good YouTube series that has gotten a lot of recognition and deserves every tiny bit of it. Congratulations to you, Frosties. Everybody else, go follow her. I don't know if she does Twitch, but at the very least, YouTube. Let's put it this way. You are a worse EVE Online player for not watching her videos. I'll put it that way. I find the PCU graph an extremely poor metric to judge EVE health back. I agree, Thalic. I know. We've been over this over and over and over and over and over. But that actually brings me to the point that I was trying to make. Oh, where's the link? Here. Frosties. I'll just permit it to you. Permit Frosties. There you go. Go ahead and post your YouTube. So on the subject of PCU graph being an extremely poor metric and people returning back to work. So one of the things I've been interested in with the PCU, because as it was just pointed out, the PCU as a health graph is kind of poor for various reasons. We use it because it's the only one we got, but ultimately it's not great, and we all know it. So what I find very interesting is actually this graph here, because this represents the passage of over time, right? So if you see, this is EU, this is end of EU. Here's the fall off in between EU and US, or here's where the US starts to pick up, and then US falls off, AU doesn't pick up nearly as much, and then it falls off as RU picks up, right? That's the daily pattern, right? Which means every day, when we say the PCU, what we're really saying is the combination of people who are playing in EU prime time, US work time, right? Because that's right here, which is like 2 hours ago, right? Which is pretty solidly in US work time and pretty solidly in EU game time. So here's the thing. There are a lot of people that are logged in while they're at work or, you know, when they should be at work. So when the US prime time is happening, they're with the Australian people who are also, that are still at work or whatever, or are on early. But that population isn't as big. Same with AU and RU, same with RU to UK. The two largest populations are the US and the UK. And so in that moment, when they both are on, even if it's not as many of the US, that's when we get our PCU. Okay? So mid morning to like noon-ish time, US, depending on where you are, is when the PCU is generally recorded. So what I find interesting about that suggestion, here's just a totally different time. We'll just look at a different time. You can see, this is actually one of the things I find fascinating, is that this graph of day over day does change, which is the relative relationship between US and EU and RU and all that sort of stuff. It's really fascinating to see how the daily graph changes from different times, right? Like this has a much like smoother slope down. If we go to blackout, actually, that's actually pretty much the same. There's, man, I was looking at somewhere where it's like, you can see where like the US bump basically gets nullified. There's places in which the US bump is actually pretty large compared to the EU bump. But the problem is that none of those changes are tracked by the PCU, because the PCU will be the same regardless of whatever is going on throughout the rest of the day. All right. So, so if more people are going into the office, I'm going to propose that there are more people that can get on EVE Online while they're at work, while working from home, than can do that at the office. So yeah, I think that as people are pulled back into the office from working from home, it is entirely possible that that could influence the PCU, because there are less of those Americans that were logged in during their work hours that aren't logged in anymore. They log in after work. So the same number of people could theoretically even be playing, but you would still see a drop in the PCU. I'm not saying this is exactly the reason, and I would love the PCU to be higher, but I'm just saying like the situation's more complicated than you would think. What did I say, Thalic? Did I say something wrong with EU and US? Or people just quit? Right. I mean, look, we're just looking at factors, man. Yes, like there's a lot of ways of telling whether or not people like. The problem is that this metric. My point is that this metric doesn't actually show us. I said UK and US. EU and US. Thank you. Yep, I got it. Never mind. I'm a dumb American. I don't know any better. Sorry. 30 to 40% of players have quit. Do you have any evidence to back up that number, or is it just a gut feeling? Don't get me wrong. I think that the player base is definitely down. A very useful metric would be the number of unique... Alex, do you want to give us that number? Because that'd be really awesome. New player counts would be nice. There it is. And what we can see is that new player accounts remains high, not as high as it was during the Doctor Who event, but it's still pretty high. That's a pretty fun graph right here. This is the past year. Yeah. What is that? 925? Frosties, what happened in 925? I don't know. End of Blackout? Or, sorry, end of the Siege? Maybe? Number of beating hearts would be nice. I mean, CCP already got some info on linked accounts. That's true. And they have actually shown us that information. But, years ago, and only very limited time periods. Wasn't the end of the war... Wasn't that the end of the war's final battle? I think that the end of the Siege, right? A lot of people came back. A lot of people made accounts. The average player of EVE has 2.5 accounts. I thought it was 1.5 accounts, and we haven't gotten an update on that recently. No, the Doctor Who spike is this ramp up right here. Like, this is Doctor Who event. I'm just going to, since I'm on the subject of hot takes, I'm going to just say this. Every single person who gets angry and therefore unsubs 20 of their accounts, leaving only 1 or 2 remaining, guess what? It was those 20 accounts that were the problem. Here's the thing. So CCP, like, player base keeps complaining that CCP is money grubbing and all that kind of stuff, or that these changes are just for whatever, but, like, they're killing multi-boxing. And everybody knows it. Right? Like it's the they could have just kept it the way it was. Early August, around that date in September, a pilot lost 1.6 trillion with 2 faction super capitals AWACSed, which may have made a mainstream news. That's true. I'm still going to go with probably the end of the war and people returning, or people coming back, or people recovering from that. Maybe? I don't know. Why don't people unsub everything? Exactly. If you were really that angry, you would unsub all of your accounts. But you don't. You're saying, CCP, I'm so mad at you, I'm going to become a reasonable player again. And, like, you wonder why CCP doesn't, like, freak out about that. Like, they know that they could have had this cash. They could have just continued to let rogue walls be the way they were and let everybody have 20 accounts, and that's fine, great, whatever. But they knew that overall, in the end, that was not great. And so they, everybody talks about how they're cash grabbing or whatever, but, like, they intentionally did something that they knew was going to damage. Like, they weren't confused. They didn't think that scarcity was going to increase their fucking numbers. They knew that this was a time that they had to get through. We all had to survive it. Like, this wasn't about, like you point at it and be like, oh, the player count is down. Yeah, when bad things happen in the game, player count goes down. Nobody thought that this was going to be good. Nobody thought that this was going to be popular. But it was necessary in the long run. That's the argument. So if you're unsubbing your 20 accounts, keeping your 2, the fact that you had 20 subbed accounts is at least a symptom of the problem. I'll put it that way. CCP damages players taking more money from the players that were left? Except for no. Because every single time those, like, my gameplay, my time in the game, my enjoyment in the game has only improved the more people abandon massive alt farms as a method of taking care of things.